What is going on, guys? It is Jordan back with the Residual Earners podcast here for episode 19. We have a very, very, very special guest today, one of my good friends, Mr. Duke Tran. We also have Presley, as always. We are excited to be here today. Today, we're going to go over Duke owns a very successful wealth management company. He's gone from nothing to being very successful, so kind of his journey through that, as well as some basic investment tips, to get moving in the right direction, to become,
I was counting on him giving us some secrets. I mean, I want some secrets to immediate wealth. I mean,
we'll see what he's got there. Before we jump in, though, guys, Presley's book giveaway is over. Check your inboxes. We will be getting in touch this week with the 5 winners that will get a signed copy of Coach's book, as well as a 15-minute Zoom call with him. So be looking for that. But yeah, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Welcome, Duke Tran.
Thank you very much for having me.
How are you doing?
Very well, very well. I'm amazed by the setup here. I feel like I'm on Jimmy Fallon.
We'll get there one day. For those, obviously, y'all don't know, Duke is one of my really good friends. We've been golfing buddies as well as family friends. Our wives and kids hang out a ton. Just a fantastic family. Duke is, started off with Merrill
Lynch.
With Merrill Lynch. Worked his butt off to then later on start his own firm. Super, super cool success story.
You said that like he and I aren't friends.
So Presley and Duke, very, very, very good friends.
That is very
family
accurate.
friends.
That's very accurate.
Duke is just one of the best people I know, and we're just grateful that you made the drive out to Heath to be on the podcast.
Hey, tell people how y'all know each other. That'd be interesting.
So we know each other from DAC, and I'll let Duke tell the story, because obviously when we first met, we kind of were, I think, meeting a lot of people that night. But y'all noticed we were new to the club, so it's at Dallas Athletic Club here in Dallas. Presley's still a member there, and it was. What event was it? It was a couples event?
I think it was a couples golf tournament.
Yep.
And I remember Jessica and I were sitting down, and we see you and Nikki walk in, and we look at one another and we're like, oh my gosh, more young people. Because there were not many young people that were in this tournament. So we immediately beelined it to you guys, and I can't remember if it was myself or Jessica that talked to Nikki first. Nikki is 10 times more approachable than Jordan is.
Absolutely.
Presley, as you know.
Yeah.
And so we gravitated towards her, struck up a conversation, and I guess the rest is history.
History.
Our kids are virtually identical ages, and so we kind of went through.
We were also neighbors.
Also neighbors. Lots of commonalities.
Commonalities.
Obviously, pro baseball is another popular area.
I thought you were going to go with similar driving distance. When you started I thought that's exactly where you're going with it.
It's along the same lines. Yes, that's how ludicrous it is. I probably hit half as long as you do off the tee. So,
before we move off of DAC, every time I walk the halls at DAC, your picture's hanging on the wall there. Explain that to me, would you?
Yes, I was a former president out there at DAC years ago. And that was a very fun experience. I actually have a funny story about that. Recently, I was meeting with a couple for investment purposes, and about 45 minutes into the meeting, the wife was like, Duke, I know you from somewhere. And I've never met her before until that day. And then one of my partners in the meeting was like, well, do you guys golf anywhere? Or are you members somewhere? I was like, yeah, we're members at DAC. Like, oh, I've seen your picture there on the hallway. So yes, I guess that picture still gets a little bit of legs, but it's been a while. So I grew up out there at DAC as my first, where I learned how to play golf, where I started my practice, started all my friendships, everything. DAC holds a very near and dear place in my heart. Actually, that's where I met my wife. So it's a great spot. I miss going out there. That's for sure.
Well, if I don't get to see you for a while, I just go stand in the hall and stare at your picture.
Sure
do you notice anything about his picture that stands out from every other picture on the wall?
Well, there's not a lot of Asian guys on that wall.
That's not where I was going with that.
Oh.
But that is accurate.
That is an accurate statement.
That is an accurate statement. Yes.
Every other person wore a black suit with a white shirt, and yours is bright blue.
Yeah. Well, a little.
And there's probably 20
Yeah, it's a
20 pictures up there?
100-year-old club, right? So
or
there's
more
quite a
than
few
that.
guys.
Yeah. And everybody's in a black suit. Then here Duke is just smiling in a bright blue one.
Okay, now I know everybody wants to get into how to make money, but real quick, tell folks who y'all golf with last week.
It's your connection, so I'll let you.
Oh, we golf with a buddy of mine, Seth Curry. Played a couple rounds with him. Our kids are our friends from school. Is how I know him.
And
Yeah.
who ended up winning that? The overall money of the 2 days?
Oh, I thought we were here to talk about investments.
I was investing in time with you,
Okay.
and also the return wasn't bad.
Yes, no, it was not me, but I'm normally on the business end of those golf bets. I have not made any money playing golf my entire golfing career. I'm not sure why I choose that as a.
But you do
hobby.
that on purpose, don't you? So they have more money to invest with you. Is that why you do that?
You know what? I should look at it that way.
Yeah.
That would make more sense if I looked at it that way.
They're write-offs. But so let's get into it here. Kind of give your backstory, went to school, kind of when you came out, kind of the stuff you did. Because obviously, the one thing that always sticks out when I think about you and the hard work put in is you always said 1,000 dials a day starting out. So just kind of give a little bit of your backstory. Obviously, you don't have to go into depth of what you're doing now because we'll kind of get into that. But kind of how you got where you are now.
Sure. Started off when I was going to school at Baylor.
Sikkim Bears.
Sikkim Bears.
Sikkim
That's
Bears,
right.
yeah.
I forgot about that. Another bear.
Well, I'm actually not, but Sarah Beth and Jeannie's parents
That's right.
and Jeannie's
A very
brother. And
bear-friendly
it's a bear-friendly family
Yeah.
out there.
So my junior year, I believe, in college, I had an internship back here in Dallas at what used to be Chase Bank. It wasn't even J.P. Morgan Chase yet, just Chase Bank. That was a paid internship. I believe in their technology department. Back then, technology was the hottest degree coming in the late 90s. There was not enough jobs in this country to fill technology degrees. So I didn't know if I was leaning that or not. So coming back in the summer to work for Chase Bank, then another buddy of mine was interning at Merrill Lynch at the time. And then a week or two in, he met a young advisor at Merrill Lynch that said, "Hey, I'm just starting out. I'm looking for an intern as well. I don't have any money to pay this intern. I just need help. If you know somebody that wants to get exposure in this business, let me know." Made the connection. I went there that first summer, maybe 6 to 8 hours a week after my day job internship that summer, just to learn about the business, get exposed to it. Found it just interesting enough that the following summer, I went back to Merrill Lynch here in Dallas, interned for them for the entire summer, the same advisor. And when I got out of school, Chase offered me a job, and Merrill Lynch offered me a job. And Merrill Lynch job offer was significantly less money, but my parents live in town, and thought to myself, you know what? Technology is always there. I can try that later, but let's give this a chance. I can live with my parents year one, save up. Let's see if it works. And in 1999, I started Merrill Lynch. In 2000 was the internet bubble. Jordan, you might be too young to remember that, but I know
I remember.
I know you remember that. And all those technology jobs that were a plethora of, just shortly before that, all went away in this country. So looking back, I'm glad I made that move. But the internet bubble also brought on an interesting phase in the stock market too. So when I first started at Merrill Lynch, the stock market kept going up, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to be a billionaire in 3 years. This is fantastic. And then the internet bubble burst. 9/11 happened. Like the whole financial world got turned upside down. But that, luckily for me, I did not have a book of business or a big book of business yet. So I got to learn by watching, and it took many lessons away from that very time in the economy that still carries with me to this day. But that's how I started, was back at Merrill Lynch in 1999. I worked for a couple teams at Merrill Lynch. And then in 2009, another big economic crisis in this country, the mortgage crisis. So then I left Merrill Lynch. Nothing against Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch is a great company, but there's a lot of us advisors that moved back in '09, primarily because Merrill Lynch stock back at end of '07, early '08 was probably $90-something a share. When I moved, it was $7 or $8 a share. And I knew the Merrill Lynch name was going away. Bank of America took over. So we had to recapitalize. That's the big reason why we all jumped ship. Nothing wrong with Merrill Lynch. We just went to another shop to recapitalize. Then I went to RBC, Royal Bank of Canada Wealth Management. Did that for 7 years. And by that time, I realized I had just enough gray hair and experience in the business, and a decent size book of business that I could go out and start my own shop. And in doing so, many of my clients were exactly like you guys, business owners. So I talked to my top 20 clients. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving. What are your thoughts? And like, oh, Duke, you should leave Merrill Lynch. Like, we left Merrill Lynch 7 years. I didn't even know you left Merrill Lynch. I've only been talking to you this whole time. I have no idea. But they're all business owners, and they were all very supportive. So that made it very comfortable for me to leave. And then, of course, everybody came along, and fast forward to this day where we have, or I have my own shop now. I have a couple other investment folks as well. So it's been growing very nicely. Not too fast as far as people, but I'm also at a point in my career that it's not about head count as much as people you want to work with and are comfortable with, and most importantly, trust, right? Because they have access to my livelihood. My clientele is my livelihood, right? So if they want to come in and steal information and go across the street, well, it'll be tough because a lot of my clients are friends still, but again, they have access to it. So I have to be extra choosy on who I pick. But it's been going great.
Definitely. So when you were at Merrill or RBC, did you have a team underneath you or no?
At Merrill, I was I was the small man. I was the junior on that team. You know, I worked with the biggest team in Texas. Actually, they were probably a top 10 team in the U.S. They're still one of the biggest teams in the country to this day. They're still at Merrill Lynch. So I was a part of a team structure there. And then I realized that there were enough layers above me that I could easily keep my head down, earn a decent living, but look up at age 50 and still be working for somebody. And in that business, you want, not everybody, but for individuals like us that we kind of want to run our own deal, like, okay, well, I'm going to go out on my own. So when I left Merrill Lynch, I was on my own. I left that team a year before I left Merrill Lynch. And then when I went to RBC, I had my own team, couple different attempts at merging with bigger teams that didn't work out. Thankfully so. It's interesting because at the time, I really wanted that to work out, but it gave me the freedom to leave and open up my own shop sooner so looking back, you know, you never know. When some things don't work out, it's like, geez, that sucks, and it seems like the end of the world. But now looking back, I'm glad none of those worked out because it gave me the freedom to go do my own thing.
Definitely. So how, in your business, it's obviously tough. There's a couple different questions I have, but you have to learn so much from the past, from, you know, the internet bubble, from the mortgage crisis, from, you know, when things are going up, what are you starting to see for things to start going down? How do you take all these experiences from the past, build on them, and implement them into, you know, what's going on now, what's going to be going on in 3 years, 5 years, so you're ahead of, because obviously you can never be totally ahead of it, but you can do some stuff to protect it as much as possible. So how do you learn from the past about and make decisions on what's coming up?
Sure. Oh, great question. So I always tell prospective clients or even existing clients this as well. The stock market, knock on wood, luckily goes up more than it goes down, but it definitely goes down, right? And in recent years, the recovery has been a little bit quicker, but there are many times in the history of this country that it's taken a year or 2 years for it to come back. But the history of this country, going back to the Great Depression, not 50%, not 75%, not 95%, not 99%, but 100% of the time when the stock market goes down, it recovers and creates new highs every single time. That's the resiliency of this country's economic system. When I started in this business, a big percentage of portfolios, they called it modern portfolio theory or whatnot. They wanted to invest a good chunk of it international. And when I didn't know any better, that's what I did when I was younger. But as I've gotten older and watched portfolios, the money is here in this country. All three of us, we believe in this country. Is it perfect? Of course not. Regardless of what goes on in D.C., it's still the greatest place to live, and I would even make a case to invest in.
There's a reason we have that flag back there.
Absolutely. So, but yes, so I've learned that all the old things that we hear in this business of buy low, sell high, time in the market, not timing the market, or Warren Buffett's old adage of you need to buy when there's blood on the streets. All those things are true, right? When the whole world is telling you to run away from the stock market, the smart money is considering and putting more money in this. That's when you really make the big moves in your portfolio. It's more comfortable to only invest when everything's hunky-dory and everybody's saying, oh, the economy's great, blah, blah, blah. Sure, you'll make a decent return, but if you look back at the big moves in your portfolio, it's those tough times. If you can reallocate properly during those tough times is when you're going to make the biggest moves.
I read that over the last 30 years, annualized, if you're in the S&P 500, it's been like a 10% growth annualized. But if you were out for just 25 days in those 30 years, your 10% drops to 5%. In other words, you got to get in, stay in, and ride the tough times, because when it bounces back, it's usually after a tough time.
100%. That's very accurate. I've heard many similar stats to that as well.
Did I sound smart telling you that? I mean,
it sounds like somebody Googled a few stats before this podcast.
I've got some notes here. Did you notice, Duke?
but that is very accurate. Of people get nervous when stock market's down, right? It especially COVID. When COVID hit, that was in the 25 years I've been in this business, I've never seen the stock market drop 30%. And I think it was like 21, 23 days. It was incredible to watch. And I had a handful of clients that at that time, they were like, hey, you've been telling me to buy when there's blood on the streets for you. Well, there's a lot of blood on the streets. and luckily for them, they were in a position to buy down. So after the fourth or fifth buy-in, I mean, they're hurting, right? They're like, oh, Duke said that, but I don't know. And I didn't know. Like, I didn't know. We could have gone even lower, right? We could have gone even lower. But then you fast forward to the end of that year, which back in 2020, no one would have ever guessed the stock market would have rallied that fast, right? By a fall, we've already recovered everything, which is ridiculous. I remember talking to clients saying, in a year or two, this will be behind us. We'll recover. Never in a million years, myself or anyone would have thought we'd recover in 90 days. That's insane. But yes, it's time in the market, not timing, and that's the hardest thing about investing is, and that I guess that's another thing I want to say is, that's what I do is take the emotion out of it, because the typical investor at home would have just pulled out. Now, if you pulled out, you would not have kept going lower. But when is the time to get back in, right? So that's the hard part too. It's easy to pull out, but then no one's going to ring a bell and say, okay, here's the bottom. Go in now. That'd be too easy.
You know, I've always thought you had a crystal ball that knew when. I mean, you're bursting my bubble here, Duke. Jeez, you got some of my money. You know,
It's, the markets have been very friendly the last 10 years. That's for sure. So.
Amen.
So, a question. You said you take the emotion out of it, and I know you weren't speaking of it in this manner, but how do you deal with the stresses of your business? Because it's definitely, you're dealing with all of your clients' livelihood. When markets aren't doing well, that's a very stressful thing to have on your shoulders. How do you deal with the stress, de-stress? How do you handle those situations?
Over time, you become a little bit immune to it or callous to it or whatnot. All of us have physician friends that see death, right? If the three of us would see it, that'd be very traumatic. We all have physician friends that see it almost on a weekly basis. I have a friend that's an oncologist, and I asked him similar questions. Like, how do you deal with that? By the time they come to you, they're in desperate situation, and oftentimes they don't make it. And being a professional, you make the best decisions possible, and just know that what you're recommending or what you're doing gives them the best chance. And that's what allows me to sleep at night, whether it's not that I'm right all the time. But I do feel that my experience and my knowledge over time has helped create a process for me to weather many, many storms out there. But you never know. You never know what the next storm is going to be, right? Even we lived through COVID, and you could re-explain everything to me again today, and I still wouldn't believe you that the world even went through that. So you never know what can happen tomorrow. But yes, I would say maybe desensitized is a bad term, but I'm callous to it. I'm used to it. It's my job to figure out the correct risk parameters for each client, and if no matter what the stock market's doing, as long as they still have money to live and have their portfolio properly risk adjusted, it'll be fine. It'll weather the storm.
Definitely. So, you went from when you started DWM, you were at RBC?
Yes.
So kind of explain that process of starting your own business for the first time, getting that up and going. There's so many different things you have to do to get a business where it's actually operational. So kind of go through that process of how long it took, the things you had to do to kick off your own thing, and the excitement, there.
Sure. It was probably close to a year when I decided to do it, to actually pull on the trigger. I had to go through everything from hiring an attorney to make sure my licenses and everything move. When I moved from Merrill Lynch to RBC, RBC had a legal team to facilitate all that for me, so I didn't have to do that, but now I have to do that on my own. Talking to my big clients, because if they don't go, well, I was probably not going to go, right? Putting money aside, knowing that once I take this leap of faith, there's not going to be any real money coming in right away either. Preparing for that. Of course, the things about finding location and all that stuff, new to me. I know old hat for you guys, right? But it was definitely new to me at the time, and it was exciting. And no matter how much I planned for it, super duper nervous, especially 30 days out, 14 days out, 7 days out, the night before. I don't think I slept the night before. I was so scared. Looking back now, I don't know why I was scared, but I was scared. I was, and I guess that's why most people don't mind working for somebody, right? There's a security blanket there. But yeah, and then open up my own shop. We didn't have DocuSign at that time. So poor Jessica, the first 60 days, I think we ate at the office and we're doing paperwork. So the next morning we're UPS documents to clients to sign transfer paperwork. You know, like we're just a bunch of late nights to start out. And what's funny is I left in August, and then we found out in October that she was pregnant. If we would have found out prior to August, I don't know if there'd be DDO. I would have been a little bit nervous on that. I don't know. Maybe now I think about, I would have gone, but who knows? Not having that on my mind gave me the extra freedom to do that as well. And then at the time, Jessica was still working. We ran benefits through her, and obviously she was, her paycheck helped us live as well, and so it was definitely a joint jump for us. And actually, she pushed me a lot. She was one of the big reasons why I did it as well. We got married, I think, a year before, and then as we're talking about what does life look like 10 years, 20 years from now? What do you ever want? What is there something different that you wanted to do, Duke? And I'm like, well, not different, but a little bit different. And so she kind of pushed me to that as well. So it was very comfortable with her working at the time for me to do that.
And I'm guessing there will be some people that are watching this podcast that are thinking about going into your profession. What would you tell them?
It is very different today than when I started. You know, when I started, I think Jordan alluded to it earlier. Every day I had to do 1,000 dials a day. You could cold call, and the only way to do that successfully is your fingers never leave the phone. Don't leave a message. You know, you dial and you get someone on, great. If you don't, you hang up. You dial again. In today's day and age, they've had caller ID since then. Do not call this. Exists now. So to some extent, people still do make some cold calls, but it's not a popular way to start this business. But there's tools today that was not available then. Media like this, podcasts, social media, a lot of different platforms to get your name out there. And that's all you're doing. When you're starting this business or any business, like any type of sales type profession, you need the world to know what you do, who you are, what you do, right? And hopefully along the way, they ask more questions and it gets to a point that they potentially become a client. But so the way I started is not necessarily the way that you could do it today. But the modern day advisors, they have a lot of other outlets that we did not have back then. That in some ways you can make a case it could be easier. In some ways you can make a case it could be harder too. At the end of the day, it's the old recipe that you guys know. It's hard work. You know, you have to do the work when no one else is looking. Those little things when everyone's asleep or when everyone else is on vacation or whatnot. Those are the sacrifices you make to start off this business or any business from the ground floor. And the more work you put in at the beginning, the better off it'll be at the end of the day, obviously. But
now I'm assuming that the best way, maybe the only way to get going is to go to a solid, good company that's been around and learn the ropes before you branch off and try to open your own firm.
Absolutely. I apologize. I didn't even say that. You're correct. Anyone new in this business, you have to sell a big entity. In my opinion, you're absolutely right. It's easier to sell the research, the investment team of a UBS, a Wells Fargo, a Merrill Lynch, a Morgan Stanley, or anyone big, and you're the conduit to these resources. That's what you're pitching at the beginning, especially if you're coming out of college, right? You were at frat parties a month ago, and now you're pitching to somebody with $5 million. It's hard to make that connection, right? If you can pitch to that person with $5 million, but you need to be pitching all the resources behind you that they've heard about, and they've heard about large companies. So yes, that is a great way to get your feet wet. And in any type of sales position, it doesn't pay very much to start. So you want somebody to give you a salary to help you get licensed. That's a process too. That's at least a 6-month process to get fully licensed to even talk about one stock with anyone. But yes, a big entity is a very smart way of starting this business for sure.
And then as you get a little gray hair, then you can start talking about your experience.
Exactly. Yep.
You don't have a lot of gray hair, though.
That's true. I don't, but I do. I assure you.
So I think building off an earlier question, working for yourself, talk about just, how amazing that is. Obviously, most people listening to this podcast are business owners, want to be business owners, want to figure out how to get residual income. Just talk about the benefits of being your own boss.
Number one, I have lots of friends that are still at the wirehouses, at the big shops. And whenever we get together, again, for them, it makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. For me, it now that I'm on this side, I see it differently. And the best way I can equate that to on a financial standpoint is it's like winning the lottery. Having your own shop versus clearing through a larger firm. The larger firm takes up more than half of every dollar that you bring in. Yes, I am responsible for overhead and all that, but net, the numbers still work out hugely in my favor, even covering all that. But I think you guys also said it in one of your other podcasts. Being a business owner provides you freedom, right? It provides you freedom on many different levels of spending time with your family, making an unlimited amount of money. The more you put in, the more you get out. You go through a period in the year that you need to slow down. No problem. It's your business, right? You can do that. You don't have any other pressures of someone else, maybe not judging you, but telling you to do this or to that. It's being a business owner is sounds like an old phrase. It's the American dream, right? It truly is the American dream. So,
I look back and in the beginning, you're busting your butt, but kind of like what you said, you can pick and choose when you're busting your butt. Mm-hmm. Like when Jordan had a ball game or Sarah Beth had a concert, there's no question I'm not going to be working. I'm going to be at the ball game or the concert. But then I may come home and work from 9 to midnight doing things, exactly. But you can pick that time. And then obviously the ultimate goal is to get it where you just kind of overseeing it and it's kind of running on its own and the money comes in. And, that's our goal, is that residual income that Jordan's talking about. But make no mistake about it, no matter what business you're looking to go into, the biggest key is going to be hard work in the beginning. I mean, there's no way around it. So if you're looking for, a free ride, then I guess buy some lottery tickets and hope you win, because I don't know of any other way to get a successful business that can make you a significant amount of money up and going without understanding you're going to put in time. And it's just a given. Definitely. I don't know what got me on that, but anyway.
That was powerful, Dad.
That was powerful. Was that profound?
That was profound.
Did you think that was profound, Duke?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it made me think of some numbers I heard when I first started 25 years ago, and I know these numbers are a little bit obsolete today, but when I first started, a big producer then told me, Duke, this business is the hardest business to earn $50,000 in, but it's one of the most rewarding and fulfilling businesses once you cross 6 figures. And that's so true. When you're starting out, to even make $50,000, like I was cold walking businesses, cold calling, like it just, you hear 800 no's every week. And that's a good week because you actually talk to 800 people, right? A lot of weeks you don't even talk to people or get anyone on the phone or anything at all. And it seems like such a grind. But yeah, when you're starting out, it just seems impossible. But once you get to a point that, I guess the name of the podcast, when there's some residual coming in, it frees you up significantly, but it takes that effort at the beginning, and it's daunting when you're starting out. Like any business, and my business is no different than anyone else. Like any business, doesn't matter what you do.
Definitely. Let's shift a little bit now. I don't want it to go on forever. To just some tips, investing strategies, stuff like that.
Okay,
that-
okay. I've got some quick hitters for you.
Okay.
More general for the people that want some nuts and bolts of what's going on in the economy today, and just kind of quick hitters here. I know hiring is strong and consumer spending is growing. Well, give me a thought on that one.
As far as how well the economy is doing
Yeah,
right
just-
now, absolutely. It is, everything that you read online or hear on TV or whatnot, they sensationalize the negative aspects of the economy because that's what the trigger point for us as humans when we come across news. So don't believe everything here. Yes, the economy is very strong, regardless of what's happening in Washington. It's not perfect, but it's.
Okay, now the flip side of that, and especially back in March and April, the inflation they've kind of lost control of that again a little bit. Give us your thoughts on that one.
Yes, it is. Well, with where interest rates are, it makes it a little bit tricky with inflation, and that's issue number one with the Federal Reserve right now on when the Federal Reserve knows that they need to lower interest rates, right? I mean, it's too high, but the pace that they've decided on is how they're going to control inflation, and so that's the juggle. Once the Federal Reserve believes that we're at a decent point, they will start to lower it. Beginning of the year, we were hoping right now would be the first trigger, but it hasn't been there yet, or I guess they don't see what they would like. The Federal Reserve does not see what they like to see, so that has not happened yet. But I do believe that the stock market will get a little bit of a lift once the Federal Reserve decides that, okay, we've seen just enough. I wish there was an exact formula that they could publish for us to know to what it is that they're looking for. But yes, that.
Well, yeah, because at the beginning of the year, everybody was thinking there's probably going to be 6 rate cuts this year.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're hoping for 1 at the end of the year. So it is definitely turned here.
Yep. I mean, at this point, I would even take not even a rate cut of them telling us there's going to be a rate cut. Just commit to a rate cut. But you're right, very different. And beginning of the year to now, it hasn't been that long, right? It's been 5 months, so a lot has changed. But with that being said, a lot can change from now to the end of year too.
Okay, I only have 4 or 5 more, and again, they're quick hitters. But with an election coming in November, how does that affect the stock market?
On average, election years are pretty decent years for the stock market. But I think if you pull up a Google stat, I think it's only like 55% of the time it's up, 45%. So it's not that far off, right? But I think maybe in recent times it's a little bit better, and it's because everybody is going to get on stage and promise the world.
Absolutely.
World hunger is going to end. Taxes are going down for everybody. It's never going to rain on a golf day. They're going to promise everything. So everyone should get a little hyped up about it.
Okay, conflicts in the Middle East.
Hard to say on that in the sense of.
I was thinking more it affects supply chains and stuff.
Okay. Yes. No. That's for sure. I feel like conflict in the Middle East has been something that's pretty much gone on in the entire time I've been in this business.
I think since biblical times.
Right.
So.
I don't want to make light of it, but it's kind of a part of society, right? So I'd imagine that supply chain and all that would plan for that accordingly, because you're right. Basically, since biblical, it's always.
It seems like it's always been there. All right, oil going from $70 to $87. How does that affect the stock market?
Well, for our friends in the oil and gas business, it's been fantastic. I don't feel oil has affected too much in today's day and age. I feel like it's been pretty steady Eddie and stable the last few years. I don't think we're going to see $1.50 gas anytime soon, but I don't think we're going to see $5 gas either. I mean, I think this is kind of the norm nowadays.
How does adding $2 trillion a year to the national debt, how does that affect what you do?
Kind of similar to the Middle East issue, right? That number is so big and so pie in the sky now that when politicians say we're going to do this, we're going to do that to reduce the national deficit, it's hard to even take anyone seriously when the number's so big, and it requires a lot of, I mean, just the money that this country gives away. Like I don't even know what that number is. It's a crazy number. I don't even see a scenario that we don't add to that every single year, right? Because for them to do all the things that they promised to do to get elected, it costs money, and it's always more money, but yet they also want to reduce taxes in some cases as well. It's hard to do both. I think that number is so big and so pie in the sky that it's hard to take that seriously whenever someone says they're going to bring it down. I think they will always continue to add to it. If they add to it annually less than the year before, I think that's a success.
All right, my last one. I'm 66, Jordan's 34. When you're talking to us, how does your thought process differ when you're talking to us about timelines and goals and stuff like that?
Everybody's timeline, even at age, is some of my most aggressive portfolios are clients well in their 80s, because it's money that they'll never spend. It's is generational wealth for them. So age does not necessarily come into play. It's not black and white, right? Everybody's situation is different. Knowing your entrepreneurial spirit, Presley, even at your age, my guess is you're working until your last breath, because that's who you are. Not because of wanting more stuff or anything. You enjoy the process of earning. You enjoy the process of helping others earn. That's what gets you up. It's not that, oh, I need to get one new shirt or another new car. I need to make more money for that. That's not what gets you up in the morning. So in your situation, there's going to always be some type of income coming in, right? But if you're 66 years old and say, hey, Duke, at 70, I'm going to wrap things up and I am going to go live on the beach for 10 months a year. I'm not going to earn one more dollar. What do I need to do? Well, in that scenario, we would glide path your portfolio into retirement, meaning whatever the equity exposure is today, we would casually reduce that going into age 70. You might not be 100% fixed income by that time, but you'd have more exposure to a more boring portfolio at that time, because the last thing you want is the year that you retire, the stock market to go down 25%, right? And it can go down 25%. That'd be ill-advised on my part. I would be doing an injustice to your portfolio. So in that scenario, we would glide path you into retirement whenever that date is. But yes, that aside, even at your age, would you buy would I have you buy similar risky-er type investments that Jordan would buy? Absolutely not, right? Jordan has time on his hands, and if it makes sense, if it went down 50%, there's still plenty of time for Jordan for that to recover. For you, we don't want investments to go down 50%, but let's buy something that maybe earns 8% or whatnot for someone like yourself. So those some of the things we think about, but it doesn't necessarily mean a 66-year-old.
Age isn't the only factor, in other words.
Correct. There's many factors.
Yeah. No, and you're right. Lord willing, I don't ever see myself doing nothing.
Yep.
And you're right. If I make another $5 million here or there, my lifestyle doesn't change. But I enjoy what I do. I enjoy helping people, and long as the good Lord gives me a mind and some health, I'll be doing this.
For sure.
So I think my last question would be somebody coming out of college, getting their first job, somebody that's only been working 5 years or so, what are the steps that those people should be taking to set themselves up, for retirement, so they can enjoy, financially set retirement?
Sure. The hardest, I think the hardest thing about making money in today's day and age is saving it. It's not investing it, it's saving it. If you're young in that scenario, Jordan, if you're 25, 30 years old, you have a long runway with whatever it is you do. You just put your money in a portfolio, buy S&P 500. You don't have to do anything crazy or fancy with it. The hardest thing about making money is saving money. We live in a society that you can lay in bed at night, get on your phone, and spend all your money on your phone, right? You can charter a plane on your phone in bed. It's too easy to spend money. When we were all younger, you actually had to get in the car or ask mom and dad to take you to the store to spend money. It's not like that in today's day and age. So when you're new to the working world, making a little bit of money, finally off of mom and dad's scholarship plan, and you can go buy this or buy that. It's so easy to do that, and I'm just as guilty. And Jordan and I talk about this all the time. I'm just as guilty as anyone. So I'm not saying things that I am great at or perfect, but it is too easy to spend money, and the hardest thing about making money is saving it, because the more you can save at a young age, the more the compounding effect of that money decades later
it's crazy.
It's
crazy.
The numbers are so out there, but they're accurate. They are very, very accurate. I can't remember the exact numbers, but for someone that puts away money in the first 10 years of working and then stops, never touches that money, versus somebody that puts away significantly more money than that at age 45 or age 50, and then it only have 10 years of it. The person that set away less money at an early age will dwarf the person that puts away more money later on in life. It's incredible, the compounding effect of money, for sure.
Well, that pretty much sums it up for me. You got anything else?
Well, give them your website. Give them how people can get a hold of you, Duke.
DukeWealthManagement.com. Super easy to get a hold of me. More than happy to answer any questions and point you in the right direction. Keep listening to this podcast for great business advice. So thank you so much for having me on here.
Well, the biggest recommendation I can give is that you've got my money. So
yes, that's very true.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend somebody that I wouldn't use. So I use Duke Wealth Management.
And mine.
And Jordan's. Yeah. And Jordan's. So
and I
want you to make me more money, though. So really stay up on things, man.
Yes, sir. And I'm actually more concerned about your portfolio than my own portfolio. So I don't want to answer to you if that goes sideways.
That's it. Well, guys, thank you again for tuning in. Obviously, we want to bring value to your lives. We want to keep bringing on awesome guests like Duke here that has just a wealth of knowledge and ways to help you out and ways to help you be more successful in life. And we're just grateful for every single person that tunes into this podcast, listens to us, and we enjoy doing this every week.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt if they like and subscribe and leave
some comments, tell us how good looking Duke is. So,
yeah. Also, down in the comments, guys, if you want us to talk about a specific topic in business or networking or whatever, just put it down there, and we will do our best to cover it for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Thanks, Duke, for coming on set, and we appreciate it.
God bless you guys.
Yes,
thank you, guys.
Bye.